And welcome back to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all for joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if it's one of your other favorite times in the week to watch and talk about sports. It is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelsey, who is so close and yet so far. He is less than 2 targets on goal away from being $1,300 richer.
Yeah, Champions League is a great time. It's also one of the worst feelings in the world when one of the best players in the world decides to not take shots on goal, instead decides to pass way too much. And it was an extra time game and just doesn't even hit a penalty. I don't know, can't give up. Anyways, I still feel pretty good though. Bet them individually and then also combine them for a parlay. So that's always nice.
You know what? Beggars can't be choosers, and every time it comes to sports betting, we tend to be beggars. But you know what? It's been close. If you haven't been following along, be sure to follow on the socials where Kelsey's been posting some of his best UEFA League bets. And you know what? Degenerates will post it for just about any sport, so you can keep up with us there for just about anything you need. But we're going to talk a little bit more about UEFA and plenty of other things going on around the world of sports. But first, we're going to go and jump right into our first segment, known as the tip off, brought to our good friends over at SeatGeek. Use code BELLYUPSports to get $20 off your first set of tickets for any concerts, sporting events, comedy shows, anything that requires tickets. SeatGeek has you covered with code BELLYUPSports. And we're going to go to the association first. And there's been a lot of rumblings as we're around 28 games left in the season before the playoffs. How good are these teams? Who's actually the teams that we we know the narrative how nobody hates the NBA more than the media that covers the NBA. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on some positives here. There's a lot of talk about teams that are good, stink, good players aren't good, et cetera, et cetera. We can go on and on. Shaq doesn't even watch the Pistons, as he alluded to after congratulating Chauncey Billups as the head coach. So we're going to go ahead and give our top 5 NBA rankings as of right now. Remember, this is not the standings. So record only plays a small part of this. These are our top 5 teams, more or less, who we think are the 5 best teams. So we're going to go in order of who we think could win a championship, more or less, is how you think about it. So these will be our top 5 teams, regardless of records, stats, vibes, coaching. Well, coaching, I guess, plays a part, but like coach's face, whatever it is, these are going to be our top 5 teams from 5 to 1. Kelsey, I know you've been looking forward to this one too, because I know you've had some things to say, and this time it will not involve your Kings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not involving the Kings. Also, not going to involve any podcast hosts potentially getting suspended from podcast hosting. But yeah, you know what? I digress.
You know what? That's a perfect prelude. So that's going to go and get right into it. We're going to go 5 to 1. I'm going to go and give my 5 first. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. And when I say the bottom, it's not even really the bottom. So we're looking at number 5 out of 30. I'm going to start with the Memphis Grizzlies. I believe they are third in the West, if not fourth. They're kind of right knocking in the door in that competitive range from 2 to 4. Where I think they could get really, really dangerous is they're a well-coached team. They're a very well-balanced team too. Like they're not very lopsided. You look at teams like team that won't be on this list, surprise, the Bucks. They have arguably the best duo. The problem is everything else doesn't work, and they randomly lose games they have no business losing. Even though Giannis is giving you 31, 12, and 6, Dame's giving you like 25, 6, and 6 and 4, or something like that. And yet they just find a way to lose a lot of games. So this team's a little the opposite, where they're very well balanced. Where I think they will get even better and be dangerous is right now you can make the case. It's pretty well thought out that Jaren Jackson Jr. is their best player. Defensively, offensively, arguably a second team All NBA caliber season in the mix for Defensive Player of the Year. Now that the odds on favorite will not be eligible due to that unfortunate incident that he had with the blood clot. So it's going to be Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson are the 2 front runners, I believe. And that's even with John Morant. That's John Morant hasn't even fully returned to being John Morant, like pre John Morant-ness, if we want to call it that. He's shown flashes. He's still good. He's giving you 20 and 8, give or take. If he can get to that form of giving you 24 and 8, 25, a few of those, oh my gosh, like when he almost destroyed a man 48 hours ago from the time of this recording, with that dunk that was almost there but wasn't quite there. I think those are the flashes you need, that takeover John Morant, where he was, for lack of better terms, a lot of people thought he would be the Anthony Edwards before Anthony Edwards, as far as that next American basketball player that could kind of take the mantle of, oh, he's that dude. Then he John Moranted it away. But I think if you can get a little bit more of that pizzazz with what Jaren Jackson is doing in that well-balanced team, I like the Grizzlies a lot. I think they can make a little bit of noise come playoff time, and they're already in the top 4 in the West. So it's not like they're that far off in the first place. It's not like we're picking a team from the depths or anything. So we're going to go with Grindhouse at number 5.
All right, fair enough. I don't agree, but you know what? I leave it at that.
That's perfectly fair. We'll go get through 4 to 1 because I'm sure you'll probably disagree with plenty more. But number 4, this is going to be a goofy one too. I got the Denver Nuggets. They have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic, in my opinion. Everything after that is a little. Russell Westbrook's been the best he's looked since arguably with what he was with Washington. Much better than he looked in those two LA teams where they basically left him out to dry. He looks awesome. Jamal Murray has his moments. Michael Porter Jr. can still hit the threes at a high quality clip. But there's just some weird moments where Denver just kind of falls into a lull. They'll get really hot. They work all the way up to that second seed. Then they get a little bit cold. They get a really bit hot. They get really cold. And I'm almost worried they're too dependent on Nikola Jokic running the offense. Just because he can run it like a well-oiled machine and a perfect conductor doesn't mean he should do it all the time. Especially if he's going to get clawed and grabbed and slashed up and look like he just got done fighting Magomed Ankalaev at the end of an NBA game with how many scratches he has on his arms. I want to see Jamal Murray, Russell Westbrook, and those guys feed a little bit more into themselves without falling off of Nikola Jokic. But number 4, Denver Nuggets. Once again, you have the best player in the world. You're in every single game. Number 3, we're going with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Best team in the West record-wise. SGA arguably MVP, depending on who you talk. If you talk to anyone in Denver, they'll yell at you. If you talk to anyone in OKC, they will yell at you the opposite way. They, once again, well-balanced team. They won a game by like 10 points without Shea, Chet, and half the starting lineup even playing. They got Williams, Dort. They're a very loaded team. Like, they are truly that good, and Shea is the best at getting at points per game. He's the leading scorer in the NBA, I believe. One of the best in recent memory, too, if I'm not mistaken. It's up to like 33 now. He's incredible. We're going to go Oklahoma City at 3. Number 2, we got the Boston Celtics. Once again, you got to try and beat those two in a 5-game series. You got to try and beat Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum in a 7-game series. Good luck. By the way, you still have arguably the best backcourt in the NBA defensively with Drew Holiday and Derek White. Oh, by the way, Peyton Pritchard can randomly give you 40 off the bench in a game where Jalen and Jason don't play. And Derek White can also give you 40 at any given moment, as he's shown. They are so well balanced. And Kristaps Porzingis, we haven't even seen. Hardly at all. Like, we get him in space at this point. Al Horford can still move. I don't understand how, but he can still move his feet and play defense. At 1,050 years old, he can still move. Like, that man was playing college basketball before half of our listeners were born. Well, maybe not half of them, but at least some of them were born. He's defying age right now with what he's asked to do. Is just a versatile big man in that offense. They shoot threes entirely too much for my liking, considering how good they are when they don't depend on it. But I get it. Analytics, blah, 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 blah. Still arguably the best roster top to bottom, in my opinion. So we're going to put the Celtics at number 2, which is going to lead to the Cleveland Cavaliers at number 1. It's not the standings, but they are so high up in the standings, it does play a part of it. Donovan Mitchell is having, statistically, I'm putting extra quotes there for the audio listeners, his worst season statistically, arguably, as far as like numbers, efficiency, etc., because he's taking a step back. He's like, oh, if they don't focus on me, I'm going to drop 40. But as soon as they do, Evan Mobley's going to give you 20 and 10. Jared Allen's going to give you 15 and 10. Darius Garland can give you 20 and 8 at a given any moment. DeAndre Hunter, what a pickup that has been. Like, my goodness, he has been incredible for them. The Kansas City Chiefs have lost more recently than the Cleveland Cavaliers have at the time of this recording. That is how absolutely incredible they have been. Off the bench, Isaac Okoro, Ty Jerome, 6th man of the year, arguably. Like, that is a very good team. Kenny Atkinson has them rolling coach of the year. He just had the magic sauce. He stepped right in with basically the exact same roster last year. He's like, nah, just put a little paprika on there and we're good to go. So you know what? We're going to put Cleveland Cavaliers at number 1. So, Kelsey, that's what I'm looking at for my top 5.
Yeah, I don't hate most of your top 5. I really just don't like number 5.
All right, so we have some similarities. All right, take it away, Kelsey.
So number 5 for me, I'm going with the Bucks. I know you said they're not that team, but they do have Giannis still, who is arguably player 1B in the conversation for best player in the world. You still have Dame and Dame time when it comes to the playoffs, which at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And on top of that, you know what? As much as I give stick to their coaching staff, they know how to win. So, yeah, I'm going to go Bucks number 5 here, especially as we get closer to the championship time, to Dame time, to a 50-piece from Chick-fil-A time for Giannis after he lifts the trophy. I think he wants another trophy just because he had another kid. So now he needs to have another trophy so he can give both kids a trophy.
That's right.
But you know what? Maybe I'm speculating with that one, but I hope that's the case. I think that would be hilarious. It feels like a very Giannis thing to do. So, yeah, that's my number 5. Number 4, I'm going with another team you didn't mention. Out of the West, the Golden State Warriors. Right now, absolutely tearing it up. And despite, I guess, whatever argument happened between Jimmy Buckets and Steve Kerr going off the court that last night, I don't know what happened there, but the team is still absolutely killing it right now. 9-1 in the last 10, which is insane. And again, you still have Steph, you have Jimmy coming in, and you have a team that plays above average when it counts. They play way above average when it counts. And look, we all know you got to win. You got to shoot threes to win. And that team can shoot threes, and now they got Jimmy doing what Jimmy does, even if it's in spurts. It's all you need. So yeah, give me the Warriors at number 4, and then here's where things come pretty much identical. Just kind of mix and match where these are placed. Number 3, I have the Celtics. Everything you said about the Celtics, yes, I agree. Don't want to face them. If I'm any team in the playoffs, there's only one other team in the East I wouldn't like to face, and they're higher up on this list. Go figure. And there's only one team in the West that I wouldn't want to face, and they're also higher up in this list. So yeah, number 2. So after the Celtics at number 3, number 2, I'm going with the Thunder. Yeah, everything you said about SGA, he's my MVP pick. Absolutely fantastic. If you are underestimating OKC because they're young, the door's over there. Don't let it hit you on the way out. Or just sit there and watch with your jaw dropped. That's fine too. It's just, that team's a fun team to watch, and they're going to be a fun team to watch for a lot of years if they can keep it together. OKC, don't let history repeat itself.
Don't let $4 million break this up again.
Exactly. $4 million to lose $75 million or whatever. Anyways, number 1 though, after the Thunder at number 2, number 1 is going to be that Cleveland Cavaliers team, the only team to wrap a playoff spot up. Literally already selling Central Division Championship shirts already around here, already running their playoff mantras out there on T-shirts. I don't think Cleveland's been this happy since LeBron came back and won a championship. Like, this seems to be the most excitement Cleveland's had because it's not coming from any other sports team other than the Guardians, and well, it's still the Guardians. So yeah, they renamed the arena, and it seems like it's all working out well. And by renamed, they literally just got rid of Mortgage out of Rocket Mortgage. So that's just Rocket Arena. But yeah, give me the Cavs number 1. That seems just absolutely fantastic, top to bottom. As you mentioned, Ty Jerome, I think it's like the fact that guy hasn't been talked about as much as a 6 man of the year is a shame. He should easily win 6 man of the year, and it shouldn't go to anybody else doing what he's doing right now. So yeah, Cavs at 1. So there you go.
You know, Rocket Arena is a good name for it, considering they're taking off right now. They literally are selling a Central Champion gear before March Madness's bracket is even set, yeah. Which is just absolutely crazy. Like, my goodness, they were selling championship gear by the time NFL free agency started. But that is just crazy when you try actually put into perspective how quickly they clinched, which is both how awesome they have been. Like, they're on pace to have the most wins in history, which is more than when LeBron did in back-to-back years at 66, I believe. They're on pace for, I think, 68, if I'm not mistaken. So, absolutely incredible.
Later.
And I do also, I like your Bucks pick. The only reason I'm hesitant is because when they do lose, it always pisses me off the way they find ways to lose. It's like, how did you lose that game now? Like, they always find unique ways to lose that make me mad. But I agree with you. If it comes down to your top 2 players or anyone else's top 2 players, I like my odds with Giannis in that 50 piece for sure. And as long as Kyle Kuzma keeps his hair relatively tamed, I don't need him going too crazy with that, then there's a good chance. I did notice you left out the Nuggets, though. Is that an indictment on Nikola Jokic, or are you just basically saying, I don't trust the rest of them?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
It's really just, I don't trust the rest of them. I think down to the Nuggets, I've been burned too many times trying to bet them. So at this point in time, it's just a matter of, all right, well, I trust the Bucks a little bit more because they haven't burned me. And the Warriors, I could bet Steph to hit a certain number of threes every time, and it's money. So
that's fair. And we both left the Lakers off. I mostly did it due to I'm worried about them staying healthy, especially LeBron getting banged up. Luka's been banged up this year. And they're a really good team, but I think that it's also that only having one quote-unquote big man on your team and it being Jackson Hayes, I still get a little bit worried come playoff time. I think in that 7-game series, that's where you get a little bit rough.
Well, you got LeBron. He's a big man.
I would think that is a good time to transition to the next part of the show. Let us know down in the comments below who you think are the top 5 teams in the NBA and who you would rank either ahead or below who we have as well. That's going to now take us from the hardwood to the pitch, as we are going to talk about soccer. And the UEFA Champions League is underway. And you know what, Kelsey? As we mentioned in the prelude or in the intro, you have been very, very close to winning a whole lot of money on this. The league is set. We know who's advancing. it's pretty interesting. We got some surprises in there, including, unfortunately, when your team let you down again.
Yeah, yeah. So round of 16 just wrapped up. Liverpool, they were my odds-on pick if you guys listened to that episode not too long ago. They ended up losing in penalties to PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. In penalties, they lose 4-1 in penalties, which is awful. I didn't know you could actually lose that bad in penalties, to be honest, because that's just shameful on so many levels. But yeah, so Liverpool crashes out in penalties. A couple like no brainers. Bayern Munich advancing, really simple. Inter Milan advancing over Feyenoord, really simple. Barcelona advancing over Benfica, pretty simple. Aston Villa stomped Club Bruges 6-1 to advance. But the really good games, Arsenal PSV today, despite Arsenal winning on aggregate 9-3, their first game, they ended up winning 4-1. Oh no, sorry, 7-1. My bad. They pretty much coasted in the second game, but the second game was still good. It was a 2-2 draw. Still a good game. And then probably the best one, my favorite one from the weekend or from the week, was Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid. Goes to penalties. Atletico technically wins the game, but because of aggregate scoring, goes to penalties. Real Madrid scores, wins 4-2 on penalties. So really big move there for Real. Setting up a potential Cinderella run, I guess you could say, for Real Madrid, because they snuck their way into the knockout phase anyways, kind of backed their way in. And then Dortmund beating Lille in game 2 in leg 2, 2-1. That's what got them advanced on aggregate to face Barcelona. Good luck with that one. Barcelona was my other team that I said probably odds-on favorite to win it all. But yeah, it sets up some really interesting matchups going forward. I do have a fancy little chart, so that way you don't have to just sit there and look at our faces the whole time. Here's our quarterfinal matchups. It'll be pretty interesting. Arsenal versus Real Madrid, PSG versus Aston Villa, which Aston Villa, because of their draw, got here. I don't know if they get here any other way. But because you go up against Club Brugge in the round of 16, you get a pretty easy advancement there. But then again, they did finish top 8 in the league standing. So, you know what? No shame for what they're doing right now. That's for sure. Barcelona playing against Dortmund and BVB. Dortmund obviously coming back to advance over Lille, and then Barcelona just putting it to Benfica in this one to get advanced to the quarterfinals. And then Bayern Munich, no surprise, advancing against Inter Milan. And so they'll face off. And maybe Harry Kane gets a chance to finally win a trophy. We'll see. I don't know. And I bet for everybody who's like, oh, he's going to win a trophy because of the German Cup. Shut up. That's like taking candy from a child. That's what Bayern does. They just dominate the German league, the Bundesliga. You know what? Until he wins a real trophy, let's pause on the whole he's finally won a trophy thing. But yeah, best goal scorer in English football, and Harry Kane has yet to win a title other than what will be his first with the Bundesliga this year with Bayern Munich. So take that for what it's worth, I guess. But yeah, there's lots of good matchups setting up. Just looking back at the chart, DJ, I know I talked about Barcelona being my favorite. Beyond that, Real Madrid on the other end of the bracket seems like a pretty good favorite to get by if they learn how to actually score goals and shoot on target. Vinny, missing a penalty, costing me a whole lot of money. But yeah, so Barcelona, Real Madrid, don't be surprised to see another Champions League matchup there. Being on opposite sides of the bracket is going to be tough for anybody really to match up with and go into those places and play. But those two right now are my favorites to advance from, get to the championship.
Say Real Madrid was my pick when we did this a while back, so they're holding strong, but there's a long ways to go, so I'm hoping they could pull that one off. From the quarterfinal matchup, which one do you think is the most likely to be a quote-unquote upset pick? Which one of those stands out? We're like, oh, they might be in danger.
Yeah, I'll pull it back up just because it's worth looking at. I honestly look at the Inter Milan Bayern technically as a potential upset. I hope Bayern doesn't get upset by Inter. I hope that is the case. But I know the one that I'm most looking forward to is Arsenal versus Real Madrid, because that's Hector. If anybody knows Hector from Insert Name FC, those are his clubs facing off against each other. So it's a lose-lose situation for Hector, and I'm going to enjoy every moment of it. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's more Real Madrid fan than an Arsenal fan, so he's probably going to be wearing the Los Blancos Galacticos shirts. Um, but we'll see. I don't know if he comes out with any Gunners gear. Maybe he goes leg one Gunners gear, leg two Real Madrid. But yeah, I think probably the upset here is Inter if there's going to be one. Which, by the way, I called Feyenoord way back in the initial knockout round to get through, and that's worked out pretty well. But yeah, Inter, I think this if in those matchups they have the best potential to move on.
Yeah, absolutely for sure. There's not just UEFA Champions League though, too. Is we also hear that the U.S. men's national team roster for this CONCACAF
Yeah.
Nations League has been announced too. So, what are we thinking about that one? Do we like the announcements, or did they miss out on this one? Was this MLB All Star voting, or was this NBA All Star voting?
Um, it was better than both combined.
Oh
So
wow!
the CONCACAF Nations League that matches up. They're in the semifinal matchups right now. So U.S. faces Panama, and on the other side, Mexico plays Canada. We kind of dodged a bullet while not dodging a bullet because this is Pochettino's first real tournament with this team as the new manager. So he gets to bring in all the young guns, all the studs, all the things that make Americans hopeful for future football success. Obviously, the big highlights. Yes, you're going to have Christian Pulisic. Yes, you're going to have Matt Turner, Zach Steffen in goal, kind of fighting back and forth. But there's a couple big moves. I think bringing Tyler Adams back in is a huge one. Keeping Diego Luna, a MLS product from Real Salt Lake, in the team after his great performance in January, I think is huge. But also, we're going to see Gio Reyna back in the club, back in the U.S. men's national team picture after we all know what happened in the last World Cup. If you don't, just go look at it. You'll see a lot of drama. Somehow the manager then was able to keep his job just one more cycle, and I still don't know how that happened, or at least long enough. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting pieces. Josh Sargent being called in as a striker. Timothy Weah is playing fantastic as Juventus. Both guys getting into the roster. Tanner Trestman from Lyon, who's having a great performance right now in France, is really showing up well. That's also going to be interesting. Real Betis, there's a lot of European-based players right now, which is huge for the U.S., where normally 65 to 70% of their roster for most of these are MLS-based. Now you got a lot of young guys, basically 26 to 21, all European styles, actually going to potentially be useful when it comes to the world stage. But we'll see. They got to get through CONCACAF Leagues Nation, and I'll be honest, CONCACAF, if you're not an MLS player, is a lot more difficult than it should be because MLS players are used to the physicality of CONCACAF, whereas European players are used to the European physicality, which some say is not as physical. And yeah, you got to kind of grind these ones out versus beautiful soccer, beautiful football, if you will.
One of my favorite things about this podcast besides sports that I like to do is I like to date ourselves. So that's what I'm going to do right now is we're going to date ourselves. If anyone is familiar with Beetlejuice, sometimes you say their name a few times and they pop up. And well, Kelsey mentioned Hector a few times and we got him in the comments. Doesn't help that Pepe and Balogun
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
out. So,
Yeah.
how do you feel about this one? Is Hector calling you out or are we on the same page here?
No. It's tough because you're sitting here looking at a first time manager with this squad, with what is expected to be the squad that goes into the World Cup next year. A lot of pieces, but as Hector points out, no Balogun, no Pepe, two young players who are fantastic strikers in their own right, battling for that number 9 spot. Balogun is the big famous one, right? Everybody knows Balogun in the world. They're like, oh, how did the Americans get him? He's performed well for America. He partners really well with Gio and with Christian Pulisic, and he plays well off of them. Pepe is a pure out and out goal scorer. You get him in the box, the guy has a nose for goal, which at times is the complaint we had for Americans in the last World Cup. No true goal scorer. Now we have Josh Sargent in the team, but Pepe and Balogun not being on there. That's also a tough situation. But yeah, I like this giving a chance to somebody like Josh Sargent to actually like carry the weight of it all. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Agimong, the other striker that's being called up as a forward, getting an opportunity up front as well. But I think this one's going to be Josh Sargent's tournament to really kind of stake himself as a potential solid number 9, maybe right behind Balogun, and right in front of Pepe going forward. So, yeah.
And Ala Madrid as well. I'll have to get that one in there on the way out as well. But Be sure to also let us know in the comments, either argue with Hector or let us know what you think for the Champions League moving forward, what teams you think could be a surprise, or if you're going to actually start tailing some of Kelsey's bets, because last 2 days we are a couple of shots away from a whole lot of money. And really, it's an offsides and a shot. Really, it's not even a
Well,
couple.
it's 2 shots for Vinny. I need 2 shots on target from Vinny. If he takes the penalty and actually hits the target, that's a different conversation. And yeah, yesterday, tough break. Pavlidis not getting the second shot on target, but you know what? It's all right. We've learned.
Speaking of tough breaks, there's going to be a whole lot of them coming up as we're in transition back to the hardwood, but this time to look at March Madness. Selection Sunday is something close to 100 hours away. I'm not going to do the math for it, but it's not that far away is the point, which means we are really close to it starting. Kelsey, we're going to be posting both of our brackets Monday as soon as we get them both filled out after Selection Sunday. We'll see which one of us can get a little bit closer. We tend to kind of alternate who does better every other year. Sometimes they're both terrible. Sometimes they're both good. Sometimes we alternate, but this year we're going to post them both. We'll see how it goes. So one thing we're going to touch on is, are your Auburn Tigers, are they going to be a number 1 seed? And if they are you taking them to go all the way this year?
Yeah, I think despite the stumble against Alabama, they stay as a 1 seed. I don't think it was enough to demote them beyond that. I do think the possibility is that Alabama could sneak up and snake them for that 1 seed if Alabama wins the SEC tournament and Auburn crashes out immediately. I think that's a possibility. I think Auburn has to win 1, maybe 2, just to have a good enough showing in the SEC tournament. Maybe get to the championship. Don't have to win the championship game of the tournament to keep that 1 seed. But it's also a situation where they 50-50 in the season between the two. Like they've split. So at this, is it enough? I don't know. Auburn's dominated nearly everybody else. They're the top KenPom ranked team in both offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency, which we all know. There's that stupid stat about KenPom when it comes to March Madness that the winner 38 out of the last 39 times of March Madness is a top 40 defensive efficiency team and a top 30 offensive efficiency team, I think is right. And yeah, there's like 7 teams that are still in that. Auburn number 1 in that list. So I don't know. I think they're going to be good, but I'm not going to pick them because every time I pick them, they disappoint me quickly. So we're not going to do that this year.
That's perfectly fair. If I can have my perfect world, we're going to get Auburn, Alabama as a 1 and a 2 seed in the same bracket. So there's a chance those two can meet up for a chance with the Final Four on the line. I know you don't want that, but me
don't do that to me, man.
After how that last one ended, I don't think you want that one so much. But
honest to God, one of the best games I saw in college basketball all season was this last Auburn Alabama game. I'd say it was a better game than the Duke North Carolina game that night.
Oh, 100%. I think it was the best college basketball game of the season, in my opinion, too. Just when you factor in the stakes, how good both teams are, and the fact that Auburn won the first matchup the way they did, too. And then Alabama doing what Bama does and find it's bad enough when Jalen Milroe's 4th and goal from 1,000 miles away. Then they do this. Your rage against Alabama's got to be grown. Like your hatred of the Crimson Tide it notches up each and every time.
It's funny, as I get older, it's never the players that bother me. It really isn't. It's the fans. It's the fans, man. I go to Kmart to get my gear. I never set foot on a college campus to support this team. And that's, I guess, as a person who's attended the university, that's why it bothers me a little bit more. But yeah, I shouldn't hate Kmart. Kmart had some great blue light specials.
Okay, I'm throwing the flag at you. Like, this is a Kmart stand. You watch your mouth there. So.
It's the one that went out of business most recent, or at least filed for bankruptcy most recently. So you know what, I gotta. And there's still a few in Alabama, which is why I make that joke even more.
I need to go to Alabama.
Yeah, well, it's actually where Nick Saban in 2009. It's where they had their championship trophy picture day and signing that they do with the team for the fans was actually at a Tuscaloosa Kmart. So that's why it's a long talk about dating yourself. There you go. Yeah. Dating yourself into why your joke stays 10 years later. Here we are.
Well, I guess I'm going to Tuscaloosa because I need to find myself a Kmart. But go ahead and let us know in the comments down below who you are taking to run through March Madness. If you already have your team picked out, obviously we'll have to see how it goes with Selection Sunday, and keep an eye out for our brackets coming out on Monday as well. And be sure to let us know what your brackets are looking like too. But that's going to now transition us into the main event. And for the main event, we're heading to the hardwood because it is that time of year again. The new NFL year is officially underway. Happy NFL New Year, if you will. And my goodness, the legal tampering period wrapped up and the money started flowing very, very quickly. Lots of signings, some pretty big name signings, and some other names out there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this up here. Let's just look at a handful of the names that have signed. We got Justin Fields going to the Jets for about $40 million. Najee Harris, Kelsey's guy, not going to the Cowboys, going to the Chargers. Joey Bosa heading to the Bills. Cameron Bynum, the safety for the Vikings, heading to the Colts. Solomon Thomas heading to Kelsey's Dallas Cowboys. For now, they might not be his Cowboys forever, though. Sam Darnold heading to the Seattle Seahawks, replacing the traded Geno Smith, who went to the Raiders. Will Fries heading to the Minnesota Vikings. Javon Holland heading to the Giants. Devontae Adams to the Los Angeles Rams. Kelsey's top 32 favorite tight end, Evan Ingram, heading to the Denver Broncos. Arguably his top 3 favorite corners, and Carlton Davis heading to his New England Patriots. And DeAndre Hopkins going where older receivers kind of go to die, either Tennessee or Baltimore Ravens. This time he's just making a stop in Baltimore. And this doesn't include some of the major trades we have seen, such as Laramie Tunsil and Deebo Samuel heading to the Commanders, Geno Smith to the Raiders, DK Metcalf to the Steelers. A very, very busy off season so far. So, Kelsey, we're going to go and just start looking at this from this among many, many others that have been signed as well. What do we like about this? And what's the surprises and what are the ones that we like?
I love the Najee Harris to the Chargers move. I think that's an underrated move. I think it's really, really good. I think it sets you up well for what the Chargers want to do. And obviously, we all know what Cleats and Khakis likes to do, which is RTDB. So yeah, the thing I'm most intrigued by, and it's not on your list, but it's one that I saw today, and I'm incredibly intrigued by it, is the Eagles signing AJ Dillon. I think exactly big guy. We all know how good he could be in short yardage situations, and then Green Bay tried to run him out there all the time. Then he got injured, and it was just like maybe that's not right. I think that's one that I'm like looking at, like that's not on your list because your list I think is a solid top. Like these are the big moves right now. Rico Dowdell withholding.
I ran out of space. Some of these people need some shorter names so I could fit more names on there. Like my goodness, I need Devontae. Your name. I should just like Devontae. That needs to be Tay. Najee, you just need to be G. Like I need the DeAndre. Yeah. Your name needs to be D. I need to shorten these names to get a few more in there.
Yeah, but I think that from your list, I think the one thing that I will say from it, Javon Holland going to the Giants, as much crap as they've gotten this last offseason, that's one of the I think Javon Holland, and I know you talked about him coming out of college, and he's so far with the Dolphins, he seems to be one of the best young safeties in the league. Like, why are we letting him walk to the Giants type of situation? I'll never understand. The Dolphins seem to be imploding right now, but the Giants are making moves that are worthwhile. But also on your list, Carlton Davis to the Patriots and the Patriots defensive resurgence right now. What is going on? There's so much going to New England. I hate every moment of it as a New England Patriots hater. But now there are 2 Auburn guys in New England that I can support as DBs.
And Christian Gonzalez.
Like their top 3 DBs right now are kind of fast and stupid. And not by stupid bad, like stupid really, really good and athletic. And it scares me. So yeah, there's a lot of great moves, a lot of interesting moves. But there's also a lot of guys still out there too.
Exactly. We've just gotten started. For example, there's Russell Wilson who's heading to Cleveland and New York in the next couple of days. There's Aaron Rodgers. We'll see where that goes. We'll let that one play out as it does. There's a lot of other guys out there too. There's some other sightings on here I didn't include. Daniel Jones finding a home, for example. That team's terrible, so I'm not going to talk too much about that one. But we've talked a little bit about that. Let's kind of talk about the totals. We're going to look at winners and losers. We're going to go on a full team-by-team basis here. I put winners and losers in parentheses because it's the offseason. Like, you don't win the offseason. You don't lose the offseason. Like, no one wants that. Also forgot to mention the trade, the Bears picking up Joe Thuney, getting him for a 4th-round pick, and some of the other moves they made, so there's some good ones there. I'm going to go with my first winner of the offseason, though. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. I look at some of the moves they've made. When we looked at them last year, we all thought they were going to be terrible. In our prediction show, we had them combined winning like 6 games, or 6 or 7 games combined. Then they did that in the first month, maybe 2 months, whatever. Point is, they're coming off a fantastic season where some of their biggest weaknesses were the trenches. Realistically, is Sam Darnold seeing ghosts, which he didn't see until the final 2 weeks, and can your trenches hold up? And what did they do? Jonathan Allen, former Commanders D tackle, 3 years, $60 million. We all know how good he can be, especially when he's on his game. Javon Hargrave, 2-year, $30 million. Just came off an $80 million deal with the 49ers. We know how good he can be. Oh, on the offensive side, Will Fries, 5 years, $88 million. One of the better guards until his leg broke last year and made the dynamic duo of French fries when they were both on the field at the same time. And as long as he's healthy, outstanding guard, arguably the best on the market. Ryan Kelly, veteran center, former teammate of Wolf Rice, 2 years, $18 million. You brought back Aaron Jones. You brought in Byron Murphy at 3 years, $66 million. Well, you brought him back, I should say. So you kept one of your big secondary pieces since you did lose Bynum. Isaiah Rodgers joining 2 years, $15 million. A very, very good starting corner who just kind of got buried on Philly's depth chart because that secondary is absolutely ridiculous. So he only got limited playing time. And then Theo Jack's coming at safety. They had some other players too, but like I look at Minnesota, I'm like, you were worried about being that team that wins 14 games and pooping the bed next year as you transition to a 22-year-old rookie quarterback. I know he's not a rookie, but he's a rookie. I think they did everything in their power to remain very much in that NFC North champion or NFC North crown contending for the crown next year. So I'm going to give the Vikings a March 11, 10, 11, 12, 13th winners right now. There's still plenty of time to see how it plays out, but I like what they did so far.
All right, fair enough. I don't hate anything the Vikings did whatsoever. But I'm actually going to go for my winner because I do have a loser, and I don't think it's surprising. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to go loser first. I just want to go loser first. I just need to get this off my chest. It's the Cowboys. It's the freaking Cowboys. Go figure. It's the Cowboys as a loser. $54 million in cap room, and you still haven't spent over $6 million on an unrestricted free agent since 2016. Turpin is a restricted free agent, by the way. Caveat to all that. But you did get Solomon Thomas. Shout out Solomon Thomas. But I honest to goodness, you didn't do anything to really help yourself long term here. Yes, you signed Javonte Williams. Great. You signed a guard. Great. But what about Micah? Still waiting on a deal. What about Deron Bland, who is the better of the two all-pro corners? Maybe I'm blasphemous in saying that. I don't know. Maybe not. And what are you going to do with Tyler Smith, the guy you drafted not even, 4 years ago now? That is a free agent. And you have so much cap space. So much cap space. You have one running back in your running back room right now, and then Deuce Vaughn, because you refuse to play Deuce Vaughn. I don't know what you're going to do at receiver. I don't know what you're doing to replace Zach Martin long term. Are you going to go with the guard from the Dolphins that you just signed? Is that your long term plan? I doubt it. Is that a short term plan? Sure, but it's not a long term plan. What are you going to do to replace Tyler Smith? I don't know. Maybe just throw some Band-Aids on it. Your center you let go the previous year just was in an NFC playoff game for the Commanders in Tyler Biadasz. What are you going to do there? Is your offensive line as good as it once was? No. Will it ever be that good? It shouldn't probably ever be that good. But like you're just floundering right now. And I'm not taking away anything from the signings they have already made, because I think the signings they make are good pieces to the greater puzzle. But right now, your puzzle pieces are scattered from here to Timbuktu, and you're not doing a whole lot to bring them all together. You're bringing the edges around, cool, but you're missing some corners here that are crucial to the success of this. So go figure that the Cowboys are my loser in free agency right now, and that is a personal opinion based on the fact I have been burned by them for the last. We're going on almost 30 years.
Interesting. I will say, too, on top of that, you let Rico Dowdle go to the Panthers. So whatever you're going to do at running back, this basically says we must draft Ashton Genty, which if they do, that is great. But if for some reason he goes earlier, there is a lot of really good running backs. So, I mean, you could draft one later, but that's a big hole, especially when your boy Najee Harris was right there. That would have been a good pickup for them as well. Like, there's a lot there for losers. But since you started with the loser, I'm going to go ahead and end with the loser.
Well, don't forget the other loser part of the Cowboys. DeMarcus Lawrence signing with the Seahawks.
Well, that's perfect because my loser is the Seattle Seahawks, actually. So, you know what? This is a good anticipated, unintentional transition because DeMarcus Lawrence is a very good player. That is not what Seattle needed. An edge rusher is great. He's 33. He's still good, but they re-signed Ernest Jones IV, which is great. You traded Geno Smith for a third-round pick. I know you couldn't quite come to a deal, but Geno Smith's a top 12-ish quarterback, give or take. Could be a top 10 player at a quarterback in any given moment. You didn't address it, especially when you look at what that offensive line and pass protection has done from the last 2 years. Some of the things they actually made happen was like, wow, okay. Do you know maybe Geno's even better than we thought, actually? And you bring in Sam Darnold, who I don't mind the deal with him because it's like a 3-year deal. If he's terrible, then you're basically tanking. And if it works, well, okay, you might have got him as a bargain. But we already know the biggest thing was getting after him. and your pass protection is terrible. Like not even bad. It has been terrible the last 2 years. You brought in Josh Jones as an offensive tackle, decent player, but you need some serious help in there. Like Will Fries, Ryan Kelly. You should have went after one of those two. You shouldn't have let the Vikings scoop up both of them. You need to go after those two. Trading away DK Metcalf, I know there was issues there, which is also part of the reason I have them as a loser for free agency. Is you had your two of your best players asked to leave, basically. Like, what is going on there? And I don't know how I feel about them getting rid of Ryan Grubb as the offense coordinator to bring in Clint Kubiak. I don't know how I feel about that. Time will tell. I thought Ryan Grubb did fine last year. Maybe could have run the ball a little bit more. But at the same time, they could have also not let Geno Smith get hit every other play. They need to shore up that pass protection. I digress. They didn't really do a whole lot to balance things out, and I don't know if going from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold is the answer. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, cool. Jerron Reed re-signing, cool. You mentioned DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, fun. Like you already have Byron Murphy. They're like, it's just weird. I don't know what they're doing. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't. It feels like you said with the puzzle pieces are scattered all over the board. It's like you're trying to put the square peg in the circle hole right now. So I'm not sure how I feel about it. I get it if you and Geno Smith, if they weren't going to get a deal with Geno Smith done, and they kind of accepted that. But then bringing in Sam Darnold makes it really weird, as opposed to, all right, maybe we should collect assets and go get Jackson Dart, maybe. Or you hate all the quarterbacks this year. You should be like, you know what, Geno, you're playing here one more year. Or I don't know. I'm really not sure how I feel about it. I really hope I'm wrong, but what I do know is those JSN targets are going to be real nice next year at this rate. So fantasy owners, JSN might be a guy to look at in a PPR league because that man's going to get targeted, and if he doesn't, well, I don't know who's getting the ball then.
No, that's a good way to go with that with Seahawks. They're the same, a lot of the same thing as the Cowboys, so no surprise. And I'm going to go with my winner, same team I just talked about a minute ago, the Patriots. My winner, Milton Williams signing as they let Gacho go to the Saints. Chris Tonga, Morgan Moses, Carlton Davis, as we talked about, Robert Spillane, Harold Landry, Josh Dobbs, which I think is an underrated pickup for their quarterback room. There's a lot of good pieces coming, and then they've signed other people back, Austin Hooper being one of them returning. I think there's a lot of good pieces for this team going forward. Despite the fact you got rid of the coach I would have kept, well, guess what? You got another coach that I wouldn't have kept, but he's the Patriot coach. He knows the Patriot way. So we're going to see a lot more of that, but I think Vrabel will be just fine in year one. By the way, they did lose Jonathan Jones. I was wrong by that. He did sign with the Commanders. But yeah, Patriots, they're my winners right now.
What's interesting, too, is they also have Joe Milton available, who they could trade if they want, because he had a nice showing in Week 18 last year. So I do think someone will take a gamble on it to get a decent pick for it, which means they loaded so much on defense in free agency. You have to imagine the draft's going to be all offense. Like it's going to be like, all right, we need offensive line, and we need somebody to catch the damn ball from Drake, maybe, because they have no – if you look at their roster, can you name one player on that offense you draft in fantasy football?
Keyshawn Boutte.
And what round did you take him in? Like, we're talking back.
Dead last.
That's a bench play you grab almost for name value only, and for maybe.
it's for the naming of my team and the hope that their team goes off offensively occasionally when I need to have a guy fill in at a wide receiver role.
Exactly, like that. So they got some retooling to do there for sure. I don't think they are done yet, but they have had a very good free agency. Everyone, be sure to let us know down below who you think won in free agency, who you lost, and who you think is just getting started. Because there's still a lot of moves left to be made. By the time we finish recording this, Aaron Rodgers might be a Steeler, or he might not be for another month. Who absolutely knows what is going to happen? There's a lot of tomfoolery aboard, but that's now to take us out of the main event and to Kelsey's favorite part of every show, and that's, of course, Crunch Time. And for Crunch Time, we are once again courting Kelsey, but this time from a first-person point of view. Sometimes the further away you look, you miss the forest through the trees, and you know what? We're going to get a little close to home as Kelsey got to do himself a little site visit on a recruiting trip.
Yeah. I had myself my first recruiting trip, my first official visit of the courting Kelsey process, down to Dallas. Go figure. The first one is the home team squad, if you will. First time in AT&T Stadium, I've really had no desire to go to that spaceship, and they can't even cover the sun. So why would I go? But you know what? I got to say, it was actually just as impressive as this picture. And by impressive, I mean it was just as boring from the outside, except for the fact it was like 1,000 times bigger than anything I ever expected. That was cool. But very boring look on the outside, very stone and basic and gray. Gray, go figure that a Cowboys fan would think that the stadium's gray after 20 plus years of being a fan. And I was welcomed by the most impressive side of all of them. And DJ, you got this text when I first got in there, but I'm going to say it out loud for those in the back that don't know what I'm about to say. This was the stadium, and fitting that they have the dirt covering the field to bury performances from last year and prepare for this next season. To go ahead and just bury it already. I will say it was a really cool stadium inside. I don't want to deny that. But as you can see in the picture up in the top right, there is some sun shining in, and I can tell you that sun does go land right in the end zones, and it's really bad. But that giant screen, the big screen TV in the middle of the field, is as massive as you could ever imagine. It literally goes 20 to 20, and it is as insane as anything I've ever seen. Honestly, my favorite part of the visit had nothing to do with the stadium, had nothing to do with the fact I was in Dallas to visit the team. It was actually somebody I met during that time. So I was down there for a mental health awareness conference. As anybody who knows me knows, I'm a big proponent of that. If you've heard me talk about it, DJ, we've talked about it on the show plenty of times. We are big proponents for mental health here on the show. And that's why I was down there. I was down there to talk mental health in the trades. And yeah, I got the opportunity to hear Solomon Thomas, actually, ironically, the new Cowboy. At the time, he was not a Cowboy yet. Speak at the convention. And him and his family, if you guys don't know, they have a nonprofit organization called The Defensive Line. And it's based on Emma's story. So Solomon's sister's Emma, and who had died by suicide after his rookie year. And it was one of the most heartwarming and impactful conversations I've had for what they're doing to fix the problem. And to hear somebody speak who you're seeing on Sundays, you're seeing on Mondays, you're seeing on Thursday nights play, just destroy other human beings, and to be as honest about his feelings on the situation. It's one of those conversations I hope a lot of people get to hear one day. And it's something that if you've never heard him talk about his family, you never heard him talk about what they do at the defensive line, never heard about his sister's story, it's definitely something I'd highly recommend somebody to look up. It was impressive. And I will say that was my favorite part of this entire trip. And no slight really to the people that work at AT&T Stadium, the people that put it together. I'll be honest, though, it was just kind of overwhelmingly boring outside of meeting Solomon and his family. And that's not a big selling point for courting Kelce, I will say. So despite Solomon now a Cowboy, so maybe I'll just get a Solomon Thomas jersey from the Cowboys and call it swell here. I'd say besides that, that was a slightly disappointing trip, I gotta say. Not the most exciting as I should be.
Interesting. All right, so they couldn't quite persuade you with a little bit of the extraness. They're even bringing in Solomon Thomas after you had a chance to speak with him. So the journey still continues for Kelce's next NFL team.
I will say, don't shut down the fan shop, people. I literally walked by the fan shop and it was shut down. I was like, it is 5 p.m., 4 p.m. What are we doing here? Anyways, I digress. But
once again, the Cowboys did themselves almost no favors here as they try and retain Kelce's fandom, which means he is still a free agent. Be sure to check our High Low Sports Extras YouTube page, as well as all of our socials to see the Courting Kelce episodes. And if you want to jump in on part of the mix, try and get Kelce to your team, send us a 60 to 90 second video of why he should be a fan of your favorite team. It could be as locked in serious, as goofy as you want, as long as it's PG-13. But that's going to do it for this episode.
We could push the PG a little bit further than that.
PG-17 then. It's like TV-17. There's a limit.
There you go.
And
NR-17.
Criminal Minds Max. That's as far as we're going.
We can go Dexter. We can go Dexter.
We're not going Dexter. We can go Dexter's Lab, but we're drawing the line in the sand.
Hey, Dexter's Lab now. Let's not kid ourselves. That show was looking back as an adult, not the greatest PG show.
Which is why that's how we're extending it. So we appreciate y'all so much for joining us on this week's episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. Be sure to let us know down in the comments below what team you think Kelce should be looking at to join. And of course, tell us about NFL free agency in your eyes as well. We appreciate y'all so much for joining us, and we will see you all again next week.
All right, sorry.